My mother-in-law threw away my late wife's wedding dress while I was at work. What I did next shocked everyone. Please subscribe to our channel and tell us in comments from where are you watching this video. It started with a phone call from my neighbor. I was on a construction site, 40 feet up on scaffolding, when my phone rang. Mrs. Henderson from next door was whispering urgently into the phone. "Tom, you need to get home right now. Your mother-in-law is at your house with garbage bags, and she's throwing things away." I should have trusted my instincts about Linda from the beginning. Ever since my wife Sarah passed away from cancer 8 months ago, my mother-in-law had been making comments about how I needed to move on and stop living in the past. She'd been pushing me to start dating again, to pack up Sarah's belongings, to essentially erase the woman I'd loved for 12 years from our home. But I never imagined she'd take matters into her own hands. I climbed down from that scaffolding faster than I ever had in my 15-year construction career. My hands were shaking as I drove home, my mind racing through all the precious memories Linda might be destroying. Sarah's art supplies, her favorite books, her jewelry, items that weren't just belongings but pieces of her soul that I wasn't ready to let go of. When I pulled into my driveway, I saw Linda loading black garbage bags into her SUV. My heart stopped. I ran to the house, and what I found inside made my blood run cold. Sarah's walk-in closet was empty, completely empty. "Linda, what have you done?" I called out, my voice echoing through the house. She appeared in the doorway, brushing dust off her hands like she'd just finished some routine cleaning. "Oh, Tom, you're home early. I was just helping you with some spring cleaning." "Spring cleaning? You threw away my wife's clothes." She sighed like I was being unreasonable. "Tom, sweetheart, she's been gone for 8 months. Keeping her clothes isn't healthy. You need to move forward." My legs felt weak. "Where are they?" I donated most of them to Goodwill. The rest went in the trash, the items that were too worn or personal for donation. "The rest went in the trash?" I repeated, my voice barely a whisper. "Yes, and before you get upset, I kept a few special pieces. Her wedding dress, some jewelry, they're in my car. I thought maybe someday, if you have a daughter, she might want them." But I was already running outside to check the garbage bags in her SUV. My hands were shaking as I opened the first bag. Sarah's favorite sweater, the blue one she wore every Christmas morning. Her collection of vintage band t-shirts. The dress she wore on our first date. All of it. Gone. "Linda, how could you do this?" I was trying not to cry in front of her. These weren't just clothes. They were memories. She crossed her arms. "Tom, I've been watching you for months. You haven't changed the sheets on your bed. You still set 2 plates at dinner. You talk to her pictures. This isn't grief anymore. It's an unhealthy obsession. She was my wife. She was my daughter, and I loved her more than you ever could. But she's gone, and she wouldn't want you living like this. She'd want you to find happiness again." I stared at this woman who had raised the love of my life, who had welcomed me into their family 13 years ago, who had held my hand at Sarah's funeral. And now she was standing in my driveway, telling me how to grieve my own wife. "Where's her wedding dress?" I asked quietly. "It's safe. Like I said, it's in my car." I walked to her SUV and looked in the back seat. There was a garment bag laid carefully across the seats. Sarah's wedding dress, the one she'd spent months picking out, the one she'd looked like an angel in, the one I'd carefully preserved in our closet with special covers and sachets. "I'm taking it back," I said. "Tom, be reasonable. What are you going to do with a wedding dress? You're not going to remarry in it. It's just taking up space." "It's not taking up space. It's taking up the space it's supposed to take up. In my house. In my closet. In my life." She stepped between me and the car. "I'm not letting you take this backward step. I'm doing this because I love you, and because Sarah would want me to help you heal." That's when something snapped inside me. "Don't you dare tell me what Sarah would want. You didn't even support our marriage for the first 3 years. You thought she was too good for me, remember?" Linda's face flushed. "That's not fair, isn't it? You made it very clear that a construction worker wasn't good enough for your daughter, the lawyer. You barely spoke to me at family gatherings. You excluded me from conversations. And now you're pretending you're doing this out of love. I grew to love you. No, you grew to tolerate me. And now that Sarah's gone, you think you can control how I remember her." I reached for the car door handle, but Linda grabbed my wrist. "Tom, please. I'm trying to help you. You can't live in a shrine to a dead woman." The words hit me like a physical blow. A shrine to a dead woman. That's how she saw the home Sarah and I had built together, the life we'd shared, the The love that didn't die just because she did. Get off my property, I said quietly. Tom, get off my property right now. She stared at me for a long moment, then got in her car and drove away, taking Sarah's wedding dress with her. I sat on my front steps for an hour, staring at the empty driveway, trying to process what had just happened. Then I went inside and stood in our bedroom, looking at the empty closet. 8 months of carefully preserved memories, gone in one afternoon. That night, I called Linda. I want the wedding dress back, I said. Tom, I think you need some time to calm down and see that I was helping. I want it back tomorrow, or I'm calling the police. The police? She laughed. For what? I'm family. I was helping you clean house. You entered my home without permission and stole my property. That's called burglary. Don't be ridiculous. I have a key. Sarah gave it to me years ago. Sarah gave it to you for emergencies. This wasn't an emergency. There was a long pause. Fine. I'll bring the dress back. But I'm not bringing back everything else. Those clothes are already donated. Then you're going to pay to replace them. Replace them? Tom, they were just clothes. They were my wife's clothes. They had sentimental value. You're going to compensate me for every single item you stole. She hung up on me. The next morning, Linda showed up with the wedding dress and her husband Frank. She handed me the garment bag with obvious reluctance. Here's your dress, she said. I hope you're happy. I unzipped the bag to check on it. The dress was there, but something was wrong. There was a stain on the bodice that hadn't been there before. Linda, what happened to the dress? She looked away. I don't know what you're talking about. But Frank looked uncomfortable. Linda, maybe you should tell him about the coffee. Frank, be quiet. What coffee? I demanded. Frank couldn't meet my eyes. She was having coffee this morning, and some spilled on the dress. She tried to clean it, but I stared at the brown stains spreading across the delicate white fabric. Sarah's wedding dress. The dress she'd worn on the happiest day of our lives. Stained because Linda was careless with it. You damaged it, I said quietly. It was an accident, Tom. These things happen. No, these things don't happen. This dress was in perfect condition, preserved in a climate-controlled closet. You took it without permission, and you damaged it. I'm sure it can be cleaned. You're sure? You're sure about my wife's wedding dress? That's when I made a decision that would change everything. I pulled out my phone and started recording. Linda, I want you to repeat what you just told me. About the coffee. Tom, put that phone away. Say it again. For the record. She looked at Frank, who was backing away toward their car. I'm not saying anything else. We're leaving. No, you're not. I blocked their path to the car. You're going to acknowledge that you entered my home without permission, removed my property, and damaged my wife's wedding dress. We're family, Tom. Family doesn't treat each other like this. Family doesn't steal from each other either. That's when Linda made her biggest mistake. She looked at me with pure disdain and said, maybe if you weren't so pathetic, clinging to a dead woman's belongings, we wouldn't have to intervene. I stopped recording. Get out. Tom, get out of my sight before I do something we'll both regret. They left, but I wasn't done. Not by a long shot. That afternoon, I took the dress to a restoration specialist. The stain was permanent. The dress that Sarah had worn with such joy, that I'd hoped to preserve for our future children, was ruined. The restoration cost alone was $2,800. But that wasn't the real damage. The real damage was immeasurable. I spent the next week researching my options. Then I called a lawyer. I want to sue my mother-in-law, I told him. For what? Theft, property damage, and emotional distress. He was quiet for a moment. Tell me what happened. I told him everything. The unauthorized entry, the disposal of Sarah's belongings, the damage to the wedding dress. When I finished, he was quiet for a long time. Mr. Davidson, I have to ask, are you sure you want to pursue this? Family court cases can get very messy. She made her choice when she decided to throw away my wife's memory. Now I'm making mine. It took 3 months to build the case. During that time, Linda tried to reconcile several times. She'd call crying, saying she was sorry, that she'd acted out of love. She offered to pay for the dress cleaning, to replace some of the clothes. But it was too late. The damage was done, and not just to the dress. The day of the hearing, Linda arrived with her own lawyer. She'd convinced several family members to testify on her behalf, saying I was mentally unstable, that I was living in an unhealthy shrine to Sarah. Her lawyer painted me as a grieving widower who couldn't accept reality, who was lashing out at the people trying to help him. Then it was my turn. I presented the evidence methodically. The security footage from my neighbor's camera showing Linda entering my house with empty garbage bags and leaving with full ones. The receipts from the restoration specialist. The documentation of every item she disposed of with their estimated sentimental and monetary value. But the most damning evidence was the recording I'd made that morning, when the judge heard Linda's voice saying, "Maybe if you weren't so pathetic, clinging to a dead woman's belongings, we wouldn't have to intervene." The courtroom went silent. "Mrs. Patterson," the judge said, "did you have permission to enter Mr. Davidson's home?" I had a key. "Did you have permission to remove his property?" I was trying to help. "Did you have permission?" "No, but..." "And did you damage his wife's wedding dress?" Linda's lawyer whispered something to her. She nodded reluctantly. "It was an accident." The judge looked at me. "Mr. Davidson, what are you seeking in terms of damages?" "I want her to pay for the restoration of the dress, even though it can't be fully repaired. I want her to compensate me for the sentimental value of the items she disposed of, and I want a restraining order preventing her from entering my home again." The judge awarded me $15,000 in damages. But more importantly, she issued the restraining order. "Mrs. Patterson," the judge said, "grief is not a timeline. People process loss differently, and no one has the right to dictate how someone else mourns. You violated this man's home, his privacy, and his process of healing. The court finds in favor of Mr. Davidson." Linda burst into tears. Her family members who had testified against me looked shocked. As we left the courthouse, Linda's sister approached me. "Tom, I hope you're happy. You've destroyed this family." "No," I said quietly. "Linda destroyed this family when she decided my grief was inconvenient. That was 6 months ago. I haven't spoken to Linda since. Some of Sarah's family members have reached out, trying to mediate, but I'm not interested. The trust is broken. I used the settlement money to create a memorial garden in my backyard. Sarah loved gardening, and now I have a beautiful space dedicated to her memory. I planted her favorite flowers, installed a bench where I can sit and remember her. The wedding dress hangs in our closet again, stain and all. It's not perfect anymore, but it's still hers. Still a symbol of the love we shared. A few weeks ago, I met someone. Her name is Rachel, and she's a widow too. We met at a grief support group. She understands that moving forward doesn't mean forgetting the past. She's seen Sarah's pictures, heard our stories, and she doesn't see them as competition. She sees them as part of who I am. Rachel lost her husband 2 years ago. She still wears her wedding ring sometimes. She still celebrates his birthday. And she completely understands why I needed to fight for Sarah's memory. "Love doesn't have an expiration date," she told me. "And anyone who tries to give it one doesn't understand what real love is." Last month, Linda sent me a card. It was a simple thinking of you card with a handwritten note. "I'm sorry for everything. I miss Sarah too, and I miss being part of your life. I hope someday you can forgive me." I read it, then put it in a drawer. Maybe someday I will forgive her. But forgiveness doesn't mean forgetting. It doesn't mean letting people back into your life who have shown they don't respect your boundaries. Sarah's clothes are gone forever. Her wedding dress will never be the same. But her memory lives on in every corner of our home, in every story I tell, in every moment I choose to honor the love we shared. And if anyone ever tries to take that away again, they'll learn the same lesson Linda did. Some battles are worth fighting, especially when you're fighting for love. Tonight, I'm cooking dinner for Rachel. She's coming over to see the memorial garden, to hear more stories about Sarah, to share stories about her husband. We're not replacing our lost loves. We're adding to them. And somewhere, I think Sarah would approve. Not because she'd want me to move on, but because she'd want me to be happy. And happiness, I've learned, isn't about forgetting the past. It's about honoring it while still being open to the future. The wedding dress still hangs in our closet, stained but treasured. A reminder that love is messy, imperfect, and sometimes gets damaged by people who don't understand its value. But it's still love, and it's still worth protecting. Please subscribe to our channel and tell us in comments from where are you watching this video.